Thanks for joining us today for our first webinar in 2014. I hope you all had a good holiday. It's great to be back together again and moving into the new year. Our guest speaker today is Aaron Page. Aaron is a student here at the University of Montana, and he works as the Student Accessibility Specialist at Online. So together we do a lot of work, and he's going to showcase some of the work we've been doing with Moodle Rooms and Core Moodle today, and then talk about some other issues related to the student experience. So really happy to have you, Aaron, and thanks for doing this for us. Before we get started, I would like everyone just to go down through the chat window, and if you'd introduce yourself and tell us what campus you're from and what you do there, that would be great. And we'll start with you, Connor, if you would, please. And if you are having trouble with audio, just go ahead and let us know in the chat. Okay, Connor, great. Electronic Resources Librarian at Montana Tech. Thanks for joining us. I don't believe you joined us before, so that's great. And the Innovation Studio is set up and running. Is anyone in the Innovation Studio this morning? So we'll watch the chat in case there's some people down there. Jessica, would you go ahead?
Sure. Good morning. So I'm Jessica Winans. I'm the Director of E-Learning at Montana Western.
Kathy? And Kathy must be experiencing some difficulties there. We'll come back to Kathy. I think people know Kathy's at Montana Tech too, and works with the online learning services there. Nancy?
I'm Nancy Klaus, and I'm an instructional designer at Online at University of Montana.
Great. And Teresa does not have a mic, so Teresa, we'll just watch for your introduction in the chat as well. And I believe, Teresa, this may be your first time joining us too. So thanks for coming. There's kind of a delay today with our connections, and it cuts out a little bit, so we'll just do the best we can and move forward. So before I turn this over to Aaron and ask Aaron to introduce himself more fully, I just wanted to mention that we're going to start by looking at accessible forums this morning. And I wanted to let those of you who might be working with Desire to Learn know that there is an accessibility group working with Desire to Learn. And it's an Athens group, which is the same group that we're working with for Core Moodle. Athens stands for Access Technology Higher Education Network, and I'll put the URL in the chat. You'll see there's a number of groups that have formed, and this is coming out of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where Hadi Rangan and John Gunderson work. So just wanted to make sure that people that are on the Desire to Learn side of the state understand that there's an active group there that started in 2006, and they have at least a dozen campuses from the US, Canada, and the UK working on the accessibility of that LMS. So I thought that was really a good discovery to learn about that. So Aaron, let me turn it over to you if you just introduce yourself, and then we'll go ahead and get started with the information you're going to share today.
Great, thanks, Marlene. So, hi, my name is Aaron Page. As Marlene said, I'm a student here at the University of Montana. I'm a junior. I'm studying information systems management through the business school. I also work for Online as a student accessibility specialist. Just a little bit of background about myself. I was born with congenital glaucoma. I actually lost most all of my vision in 2009. Shortly after that, I went down to Little Rock, Arkansas, and I attended a training center called Blind World Services for the Blind. I attended there for about 3-4 months, just doing 8 hours a day of nothing but assistive technology, screen readers, screen magnifiers, Braille, and independent living skills. And after that, I came back, and in 2011, I began to attend classes here at the university. In my work with Online, we've been working with the vendors from Moodle Rooms to develop a new discussion board for our LMS. There was an Office of Civil Rights complaint that was filed against the University of Montana, and one of the issues that they specifically cited in that OCR complaint was the inaccessibility of our discussion boards. And so we put a lot of effort into developing a discussion board specifically that will work for users with any kind of physical or motor disability. And so today I'm going to go ahead and show you our new discussion board and some of the nice features and the advantages to using it. So one of the first things about our new discussion board that's really neat, the discussion board that you see up on the screen right now is actually the standard discussion board that comes in Moodle Rooms versions of Moodle. It's their advanced discussion board. One of the things that they included here is a link that will allow a screen reader user to quickly access the new accessible view. So visually up on the screen, you won't actually see this link. It's hidden. But if I tell my screen reader to give me a list of all of the links that are contained in the document, there's this link right here that says switch to the accessible view that I can use to go ahead and switch over to the new accessible mode. And this is actually a pretty common practice. Amazon is the first one that comes to my mind. The very first thing the screen reader user will hear when they go to Amazon.com is a link that says screen reader users click here to switch to the accessible version. So it's a very common practice to use a link like this to switch to a more accessible mode. So go ahead and switch it over here. So now you can see what the actual accessible version of our discussion boards look like. I'm told it's not the most visually appealing, but it works really great for screen reader users. It's got a lot of advantages. So one of them is this version of the discussion board, it actually uses heading structure to provide navigation between your discussions, your posts, and your replies. So I'll go ahead and tell my screen reader to give me a list of all the headings here in the document. And see right here, it tells me that there are 2 discussions currently within this forum. There's this one right here, test discussion number 2. That's one of the discussions. And test discussion number 1. That's the other discussion. And you can tell in a couple of different ways. First off, that because it's directly underneath the 2 discussions headings, so that's kind of a good indicator that these are the discussions. But also by the structure numbering at the end of these headings, you'll notice that they're marked off as 4, which means they're heading level 4. So throughout this interface, heading level 4s refers to discussions. Excuse me for just 1 minute. Got a little bit of a lag here.
Yes, it looks good, Aaron.
Okay, I'm back. Can everybody still see my screen? Okay, not hearing any objections. I'm going to go ahead and continue on. So here in the accessible discussion forums, we also, ARIA is basically a markup similar to HTML that you can use on web page. And so using the ARIA in here, a screen reader user can actually navigate of the page. So the first one is, it's called the main region. The main discussions region is a quick way, if you just basically want to get to the top of that discussions list, you can quickly navigate to it using the discussions region. Then it goes into articles. Articles are the individual discussions. So it says test discussion number 2 article. That's just like the heading structure. It's another way for users to be able to go ahead and navigate around. Not all screen reader users use the same methods of navigating with web pages. So the more ways you can provide to access that content, the better. Another feature that we've included here in the accessible discussion board is what we call the simple editor. So one of the biggest issues that a lot of screen reader users seem to currently have with Moodle is the tiny MCE text editor that it uses. Just by its design, it's kind of cumbersome to get a screen reader to focus inside of that editor and then to correctly type in text, read it back to you, and allow you to edit it. So we kind of pushed to move away from using that editor here in the accessible to add new discussion topic button. You can see here it asks what subject I want to give it and what the message is that I want to enter in. And this is basically just a large plain text field created in HTML. It's not using any special editors or any ARIA or anything like that. So it's very straightforward, it's very easy, and the advantage to it is that because it uses just your basic HTML elements, it's going to be compatible with all of your different kinds of screen readers, from your really basic screen readers, such as Microsoft Narrator and the screen reader that goes with ZoomText, to your more sophisticated screen readers, such as JAWS, non-visual desktop access, and VoiceOver. So I'm going to go ahead and create a another discussion here. So another feature that we included in the accessible discussion boards is audio notifications whenever you complete a particular action. And so we did this, again, we used ARIA, the Accessible Rich Internet Application Language, in order to create it. So what it does is, for most any of the actions that you can do here, whether it's splitting a discussion, creating a new discussion, submitting a reply, editing a post, basically whatever actions you can think of, as soon as you complete the action, your screen reader will announce to you that it was successful. So for instance, if you create a new discussion, it's after you submit it, ARIA will cause your screen reader to announce out loud your discussion has been successfully created. So it's a really handy way to know that what you asked for it to do was successful. It did go through. You don't have to go scrolling back down and double check it again just to be sure. So it's really very nice. Okie dokie. So currently, we have just one bug, really, with the accessible discussion boards that we know of. Let me go back to the main page here. So this one and only issue that we still currently have, and it only applies to JAWS users. For some reason, this doesn't affect VoiceOver, non-visual desktop access, any of the other screen readers that we've tried. Is when you go to expand one particular team with other screen readers, once you've expanded out that discussion, the other discussion, the title of the discussion that you expanded, then the text of the discussion that you expanded, and then it's That is unfortunately not the case, though, for JAWS users, because JAWS uses ARIA the same as for other screen readers. With JAWS, unfortunately, once you expand out one and the others that have not been expanded, so it's not really too much of a concern, but it is kind of our one known bug that we have here in the accessible discussion board. So in that, one of the issues that they cited with that discussion, with the discussion boards that we had previously, the user to be able to distinguish the semantic structure of the conversation. So for the user to tell if I created a post and Marlene replied to me and then Nancy, there was no real way for the screen reader user to distinguish that Nancy's reply was to Marlene and not to myself. Visually, there was indentation that was used to indicate that structure, but that was never conveyed in any way to the screen reader. So we fixed that issue as well here in the accessible discussion boards.
So I see there's some delay. We're having microphone issues going on. I can tell by looking over in the main room. So Aaron, I believe you got through the features that we wanted to go over, and appreciate you working through those. Hopefully our sound is going to resolve itself. And then Aaron, I know you wanted to talk about some other, just some general experiences as a student. So I was wondering if you'd like to go ahead with perhaps asking questions. If people ask questions in the chat area, I'll definitely read those out. So does anyone have any questions for Aaron about the revisions we did to that accessible forum to get that semantic meaning and navigation structure in place? Yes, Kathy wrote in the chat, is the forum available now? And it is. They just did their December release at Moodle Rooms, and that was, they worked really hard. We were testing like crazy, and it is in the current view now, and they definitely covered it when they did their introductory webinars. And we had another student tester here at the University of Montana, and we also had hi, Aaron. Are you having troubles?
Yeah, I got a notice saying I was disconnected from Elluminate. I wasn't sure if that happened to anybody else.
We're still in the room. Go ahead and try and reconnect, and I'm just kind of taking questions.
Okay, where did it kind of cut me off?
You had just finished showing the one feature they need to fix with the going out of the accessible view.
Oh,
okay, thanks, there. All right, thanks. We'll watch for you. Sorry for all the technical difficulties today. This has been a little hard to get the information, but with the lags. But I hope you're getting the gist of things. So we tested with an additional student here at the University of Montana, and we also tested with Ann Taylor at the National Federation of the Blind, and Hadi Reagan was also. Because he's a screen reader user, he was also involved in helping us look at this. So where we're at with this forum now is it's in active use. We'll be getting feedback on it, and then Martin Dugiamas at Core Moodle is watching this and looking at this as one way that Core Moodle might create one forum view that's accessible. We'll move away from having the accessible view, and the whole forum itself will be accessible. But to meet the the deadlines related to our OCR complaint, the company Moodle Rooms worked intensively to get their advanced forums up and running for us. So that's kind of the state of where we're at. I'm wondering if others know about the accessibility of the D2L forums. I haven't heard about any discussion about that, and I'm just wondering if anyone attending today knows what the status is of the D2L forums. Okay, I'm assuming if we choose Advanced Forum, it will be accessible. Kathy, correct. You have to go to the Advanced Forum. The forum, there's Forum and Advanced Forum, and Forum is Core Moodle. Advanced Forum is Moodle Rooms. So in our system, we're actually indicating that people should use the Advanced Forum because it's accessible. And if, you know, we encourage you at the other campuses to contact our system admin if you want to go ahead and do that too, or if you want specific wording from us.
Can everybody hear me?
Did that. Hopefully, in the future, Forum will be accessible, and I know Martin Dugiamas is working on that. So, Aaron, I see you're back, and Kathy just had a question about if the Advanced Forum was available now. So, I think I don't see any other. Yes, go ahead, Aaron. We're just talking about the other issue.
Okay, so
yes, go ahead, Aaron. We're just talking about the other issue.
Can everybody hear me okay? Great. Oh, okay. So I believe you guys all heard that we basically had this one thing with that we have left in the accessible discussion board, and that applied only to JAWS users, and that was because of the way that JAWS interacts with the ARIA. It's not a critical issue, though. It just provides a few more discussion links on there when you actually expand one out. But it still works, and for all other screen readers, it does successfully hide those links, so we didn't want to break it for all the other screen readers just for the sake of making it work for one, that being JAWS. The last thing I kind of just wanted to mention about this, and I mentioned it a little bit in passing earlier, is that one of the advantages to the way we designed this new accessible forum is that because it uses simple HTML elements, it uses regular headers or headings, it uses standard links, standard buttons, standard form controls. It will work for any and all screen readers, basically, whether you're talking really beginner entry-level screen readers, such as Windows Narrator that doesn't really support ARIA. They can navigate around using just the heading structure, or even just simply by pressing the Tab key. You can use that to get around. Or if you have a more advanced screen reader, such as JAWS or non-visual desktop access or VoiceOver, you can use those and ARIA or the heading structure however you want to be able to navigate and use this discussion board. So it makes it a lot more universal. It even works on your mobile devices. A lot of the designs that we took for the accessible discussion board here were inspired by social media and apps on mobile devices. And so this actually works quite well on your mobile devices, even with your mobile screen readers, like a VoiceOver on an iPhone or an iPad. So I wanted to leave a few moments just if anybody had any questions about the discussion board from a screen reader user perspective, if you had any questions for me specifically about using the discussion board, how it works, anything like that. Well, since I'm not hearing anything, I'm assuming that nobody's got any questions, at least about that. If you do think of something, be sure to chime in. You can just speak it aloud, and mind the lag. Eventually, I'll hear it, or you can just type it into the chat, and Marlene will read it aloud for you. That way, I can answer it if you have any questions.
Big undertaking, and it's much appreciated by many. I'm certain.
So I don't see any questions in the chat, Erin.
Okay.
If you want to continue forward.
Yeah. So that is really all I kind of wanted to cover and show you about the Accessible Discussion Board. So from there, I guess I wanted to explain to you just a couple of experiences. You're very welcome, Nancy. It's my pleasure, and we're hoping that this is going to get passed along to Moodle Core at some point, and we hope to see something similar or something inspired by this make its way into Core Moodle at some point or another. Martin Duguiamas, the founder of Core Moodle, has definitely expressed interest in this and making the Core forums accessible. Sure. Sounds like you're kind of cutting in and out there, Nancy. I'm not sure if that's on your end here or mine. So next, I just kind of wanted to share a few experiences that I've had as a disabled student, a blind student, going to the University of Montana. I wanted to share a couple of experiences that I've had that I thought are kind of good. They have some good lessons to take away from them, basically. The first one is, and I'm going to be intentionally a little bit vague about these because I don't want to single anybody out or have anybody feel like I am singling them out. So the first one that I wanted to talk about is the process.
I see where Erin was bounced out of the room, so we'll wait for him to rejoin us. Sorry about the technical difficulties today. I know we're all getting some sound problems here, and I'm not sure what the issue is exactly, but we'll just see if we can get through this and get Erin back in to share the experiences that he wanted to mention today during his discussion with all of you. So we'll just wait for Erin to join the room. While we're waiting, are there any other comments from the group that you'd like to share? It looks like you can turn your microphone on now. I guess while we're waiting, I could just talk with you about our other accessibility efforts here related to the OCR complaint. Messaging was also listed as inaccessible in the OCR complaint because there was no audio notification to a student who couldn't see the screen. So we submitted a ticket on that, and actually Martin Duguiamas picked it up himself in the tracker, and in our discussion with him next Wednesday we'll get an update on that. But they're also working on making messaging accessible. It had some, aside from not having an audio notification in in 2.3 and 2.4, you had to install QuickTime to make the audio notification work. And we're really recommending that the screen reader user should not have to install anything extra to get that audio notification. So that's one feature we're working on, and I know that for 2.7 now, we're asking Core Moodle what issues they want to focus on so that our group of programmers can begin taking projects and working directly with Moodle headquarters. And what we've really done, and we wrote this into the settlement agreement with the Office of Civil Rights, we said that we would develop a process for making and keeping the learning management system accessible, because with all the upgrades, you can have a learning management system accessible at one point in time, but within a period of 2 years or so, you can again have inaccessible features incorporated into it. So we're developing a process where this group of programmers internationally works directly with the designers at Moodle headquarters, and accessibility is built right into the new features, and then we'll go back and get accessibility built into the older features that currently need work. So our next step is to have Martin identify the key areas he wants to focus on, and then we'll pick up that work and continue moving forward. So this will be an ongoing process. It's not something that's going to be done as soon as we get the forum in Core Moodle accessible. So it's just been really awesome to have this experience of working with first of all, the open source community, but then a vendor, and to realize how responsive and receptive they are to accessibility issues. So we found that really encouraging. And I'm not sure if any of you have had that opportunity to work directly with vendors on different products on your campus, but it's definitely been worthwhile in terms of the time it's taken to do that. Thanks for your comments in the chat, Kathy. Yeah, I think moving forward, it's going to be, now that we've got this process started, I think we've made a big step in the right direction. And understand that this collaboration didn't even form until late in the summer of 2013. So this effort's been only going on less than half a year, and we already are making really good progress in the right direction. And it's a huge project, but it's definitely moving and has the right players in place. And you know, we've had Greg Krause speak here too, and he's been very actively working. I like that, great leap forward for mankind. In the chat there. Greg Krause has actively worked with the Moodle community for many years because they use Core Moodle on North Carolina State. So Greg is one of the people who is very active in this work, and as is Hadi Rangan. So some of the speakers that we've had on this webinar series are working with us on a bi-monthly or twice a month basis to identify projects and do work with Moodle HQ. So it's a pretty dynamic process we have in place. I'm very worried that Aaron is not getting back in the area here. He's just next door. I might walk over and just give him my headphones and let him speak with you from here so that we can keep moving forward. So if you just give me 1 minute, thanks. Aaron, will you come next door and just shoot me?
I've been talking this whole time. I didn't know. Come over here.
So Erin will be with us in just a moment. I'm right here. Here's your headphones. Thank you for your patience and understanding.
Oh. Hi, everybody. So I understand I got cut out there, and I've been having a fun chat with myself for the past couple of minutes. So I'm just, if anybody could tell me kind of where I got cut out at, that would be great.
They're having trouble with their microphones too. But you were just moving into talking about your experiences as a student on campus. So if you would just start with that.
Okay. So I wanted to just talk to you guys a little bit about a few experiences that I've had as a student going to the university. I've thought about it, and I selected 3 kind of instances that I thought had some good lessons to take away from it. The first one is about a paper form that was required here by the university. There's a particular process, and I'm going to be intentionally a little bit vague because I don't want to single anybody out or have anybody believe that I am singling them out if they're listening. So there was a particular process here on the university campus that students had to do fairly regularly. You had to do it several times a semester. And in order to complete this process, it required you to fill out a paper form that you then had to physically take to the office and give them it, on paper. There was not an accessible version of this form. There was no way to fill it out on a computer. The actual electronic version of it that they had was just an image PDF. So if you tried to open up the PDF file, you would just find a scanned image in it. There was no way to actually fill it out. So I initially submitted what we call a barrier report about this form, just stating that it wasn't an accessible form. There was no way for somebody like myself to be able to fill it out without having the department that oversees that process, that particular form. The official response was that they would create an accessible version of the form that could be filled out electronically. About another year went by after I had gotten that official response, and no progress had been made. So far as I knew, nobody had used the inaccessible paper form. So I brought the complaint up again. I mentioned it, and was told that, yes, they had in fact actually created a accessible version of this form. They just hadn't announced it to anybody. So nobody was aware that this new accessible form was now available to be used. So I was pretty excited. I went on there and took a look at it, and it was exactly what I wanted. There was now a way for myself or anybody else who uses the screen reader to be able to go ahead and fill it out on the computer without having to get the assistance of somebody that was sighted. So at the time, it seemed pretty great. Unfortunately, I then found out that despite being able to actually fill it out on the computer, the department in question wanted me to continue to provide it on paper. So they wanted me to still print it out and physically take it over to their office whenever it was necessary. So for round 3, this time I actually went and spoke to the department head specifically. Had a little bit of a back and forth about it, but eventually they decided that we should have a process where this could be completed and submitted electronically. And so now there is a way I can now, or any student can go ahead and fill out that form on a computer. They can submit it electronically via email. Print it out, no more paper, no more having to get assistance in order to fill out the form. It's completely accessible.
Hi, everybody. This is Nancy. They're having some audio issues again, so if you can bear with them for a few minutes, hopefully they'll get that resolved. And if there's anybody with any comments or questions regarding any of the information errands. Technology is fun, isn't it, Kathy? Anyway, if you have any questions that are coming to mind for Aaron, go ahead and put them in the chat room. And when they do get reconnected, we can let him know what those are. So thanks so much for your patience. We appreciate it. Now it looks like they've rejoined the session, so they should be on again in a minute. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. So we're back on again. We are just having some very fun connection trouble today. Nancy, I'm not sure if you could tell me where it was that I got cut off at.
I think it was just after you finished talking about the way that they resolve the inaccessible forms with the registrar's office, I believe.
Okay. So you just, in conclusion to the paper form story, after speaking to them, after 3 rounds of complaints or speaking to them about it, we did finally get a process in place where this form could be done electronically. It could be submitted electronically. And I don't know if you guys heard this part before. Just my main takeaway, I guess, from this would be, one is just how inaccessible paper is. So if you oversee any kind of process that uses paper, ask yourself, do we have a way of doing this without the form? Can it be done on the computer? Or do we at least have a way of having this form filled out on the computer? Because if you don't, if the only way you can do it is to come to you and get the form and write down your answers on the form, it's a very inaccessible process.
And in the chat, good lesson was typed in there.
So the next one that I wanted to talk about was I had a class that I had taken. It was a biology class. It was by its design, it was a pretty inaccessible class. But because of the instructor, or the professor I should say, and his incredible willingness to work with us, we were able to make this class that by its design was really inaccessible. We made it very accessible. So it was a biology class. It had lots of accessibility issues to start off with. First and foremost was that all of the lectures were done using PowerPoint slides. Nearly all of the PowerPoint slides consisted of images. Not a single one of these images had an alt tag on it. So if a screen reader user tried to use these slides, they would just get 60 or 70 slides of unlabeled graphic. So the slides were pretty useless. Another issue that they had with the class was homework assignments were administered using an online tool, not Moodle or Desire to Learn, but one of those publisher-supplied tools. This online tool that they used for the homework assignment was really inaccessible. It was really hard for a screen reader user just to get logged in, get an account created, and get signed in. But once you actually did, none of the homework text could actually be read, and none of the images that were on the site had alt tags, and a lot of it used Adobe Flash, so it wasn't particularly screen reader friendly. The homework system had many, many issues. It also in this class, for the test, they used Scantron forms. Scantron forms are kind of handy, I know, but in essence they are paper. In order to fill out a Scantron form, you have to have, if you're somebody who can't see to fill in the bubbles, you have to have somebody who can see do that for you. So I couldn't even fill out the tests on my own. And then not lastly, I should say, another issue that we had with that class was the laboratory component. Every week that class had a lab, and several of the labs used chemicals in it. A couple of them in particular that I remember, one of them used lye, and another one used liquid nitrogen. In case you're not familiar, lye will burn you, and liquid nitrogen will freeze you. So I was really nervous about the laboratory component for this as well. And just to top it all off, the final project in this class required creating or drawing up a poster. In groups, you were assigned an experiment, you completed the experiment, and then you had to draw up a poster about the experiment. So nearly everything about this class was not accessible to begin with. So the professor was great. He, right off the bat, as soon as I met with him, he set up an appointment to come over here, and he met with Marlene and I. We discussed what he could do about his PowerPoints, how he could put in alt tags to make those accessible, what he could do about a lot of the other course documents like his syllabi and handouts and whatnot, how he could make those accessible. When it came to the online homework assignments, what we went ahead and did was we went ahead and substituted out those inaccessible online homework assignments with homework questions, exercises that were taken directly out of the back of the chapters in the book. DSS, since it was a biology book, they had no issue whatsoever with getting me an accessible version of that text. So since I had an accessible version of the text, I could get those questions no problem. So that provided a solution for the inaccessible homework questions. For the laboratory component, what we went ahead and did, the professor assigned a graduate student that they had. This student was working with him on, she had been, I can't remember the name, unfortunately, of what program she had been given, but she had earned a grant, and assuming she worked so many hours with a professor on a biology-related topic, she got access to this grant. And so she was assigned to me to help me work through those laboratory components. So that took a lot of stress off in terms of not having to worry about handling something that could burn me or could freeze me. For the tests, the professor went ahead and let me, instead of filling it out on the Scantron forms, the professor allowed me to fill out the answers just in a simple Microsoft Word document. Just write it down. Number 1 is A, number 2 is B, number 3 is C. So that was very simple, very quick and easy. And then for the last assignment, for the final exam, the poster project, the professor, he went ahead and allowed different forms of the project. So rather than forcing it, it had to be a poster, he allowed for video or audio or poster images, however you wanted to go about it. And so my group, what we ended up doing was we did kind of a science talk radio program, basically. Individual members of the group, in turn, we talked a little bit about what we did in the experiment. Our experiment was a project where we went and we studied birds and we introduced non-native bird noises into the area. We checked for reactions. So each person in turn in the group got a chance to discuss what we did in the experiment, and we made I believe it was about a 4-minute long video, audio clip with that, and that was our assignment. And so my takeaway mainly from that was just that it doesn't really matter how inaccessible the class may be to start off with. If there's willingness to work on both sides, in this case, I'm always willing to work with my professors, and in this case, the professor was so very willing to work with us and very cooperative. And because of that, we were able to work together, and we made this class that had tons of accessibility barriers to start off with. We made it accessible, and I got an A, and I'm very proud of it. So the last example that I had chosen that I wanted to talk about, what should have been a fundamentally accessible, easy to complete course in terms of accessibility, how that was made really inaccessible. It was kind of unfortunate, and in my opinion, a lot of this was kind of self-induced by the professor. Again, I'm not gonna try to specify what the class is, but this class, initially, it was really accessible. They had all the documents put up on Moodle, tests and quizzes, all administered through Moodle. Those Moodle tests and quizzes, if you don't know, for the most part are pretty accessible to a screen reader. There are a couple of quiz question types that aren't accessible, but nearly all of them are. And so by doing tests and quizzes on Moodle, that made that very accessible. Videos that he used were hosted on YouTube, which was great because YouTube embeds are accessible to most screen readers right off the bat. So this class really should have been accessible from the beginning. Unfortunately, though, there were some problems. One of them was this particular professor had his own quirk, I guess, or class rule that every student was assigned a paper name tent. And every student was required to have this paper name tent with them. You had to bring it with you every single day, and you had to keep this name tent, quote unquote. So to start off with, again, it's paper. So paper, again, not being accessible to somebody like myself who can't see the paper. But just to top it off, if you can't see it, how do you make a determination that what it is professional looking? So that was put in there, which provided one accessibility barrier. Next,
it turns out that most of the documents that this professor had submitted up onto Moodle were PDFs of scanned images. So whenever I would try to go and open up one of these documents, I would just get told unlabeled graphic, or this document is empty. So most of those documents that were actually, and then lastly, they also had an assignment in that class. This one was kind of similar to the biology, but in this one they wanted you to do a video. And the professor was not particularly willing to do any variation on any of it. So even after going and speaking to the professor, he insisted that I continue to do this paper name tent thing, even though the paper name tent was not accessible. I couldn't see it. I had no way of being able to tell if it was still professional looking or not. And they were not willing to do any variation in terms of the video project. Somebody who was sighted, in order to go ahead and actually record the video, and then in order to go ahead and do the video editing, the splicing, the timelining, that component, because most of those programs aren't compatible with screen readers like Adobe Premiere. So because of those issues, this class that should have been accessible, because it was almost all electronic, all done up on Moodle, it should have been accessible. If the files that had been put on there were accessible, I wouldn't have had any trouble. The quizzes would have been accessible. Had they have been willing to allow for a little bit of difference in that video project, then that would have made that much, much more accessible. It also would have made it a lot more in keeping with the concepts behind universal design, which allows for some license in how you do projects like that. You're not necessarily forced onto one particular medium. So in the end, this class was made inaccessible, in my opinion, by decision of the professor, and the unwillingness of the professor to make changes to make the class more accessible. And so I guess my main takeaway from that is that if you teach a class, or if you have kind of your own little ways of doing things, analyze them and realize if it is accessible, then maybe we need to do something a little bit different. Don't be entirely set on your way just because it's the way you've been doing things. That has been a prevalent attitude that I've come across oftentimes with professors, and it's unfortunate. If you're willing to have a little bit of wiggle room, you can usually make things much, much more accessible and much, much more interesting to your students too.
So Erin, thanks very much for your presentation today. It's at the top of the hour. You did incredibly wonderful in terms of working with the technical difficulties and still getting the med plan to cover.
Marlene,
so thank
this
you
is
very
Kathy.
much.
Can I make a quick comment?
And, thank you, all of you who joined us. I know we have some first-time members in our audience, and I appreciate your patience with the system today. This is very. Yes, Kathy, please do.
I just wanted to let you and Erin know this has been very helpful. We have a blind. Hello, can you hear me?
This is Erin.
Hello? Can you hear? I had a comment. Can you
Kathy,
hear me?
did you have a question? We aren't able to hear you at the moment. I can.
Hello?
We can hear you now. Hello. Is the talk button on? Yes, we can hear you. I don't know if she can hear us. I can hear her. Do you want to type in "we can hear you"?
Hello?
I think what we might do, just because this is that we're over the top of the hour, and it seems like when more than one user is using the microphone, we're running into troubles. Kathy, I see you said thanks, Aaron, and Marlene in the chat. If you want to type your question, we'll look at that question still. Okay, thanks. Kathy wrote, I guess I will do this later. I think what we'll do for the sake of the website, we've been putting the recordings up and getting them captioned. I think what Aaron and I will do is just re-record this session and get that recording up on the website in case you want to refer other people to the recording. We'll refrain from putting this one up today since we had so many technical difficulties. But I do appreciate your patience and appreciate all of you for making time today to join us. And I wanted to mention our next meeting will be February 7th. Cheryl Pruitt from the Chancellor's Office for the California State University System will be joining us. So I'm really looking forward to visiting with her on topics related to that large system and how they deal with accessibility on multiple campuses, over 20 campuses. So that will be 10 o'clock next February 7th, and I hope you can join us then. Again, I appreciate your time and involvement, and in the meantime, I hope we can use the email list to stay in touch with Kathy on the planning for the upcoming XLI 2014 conference. Kathy, I see in the chat now you said that will be great, the extra work, but I would appreciate it, the additional recording. She says that we have a blind student next semester, and I'm sure you're going to have some questions and maybe some ideas that you can gather from Aaron about the work that you might be able to do. I think that the examples Aaron shared were really pretty powerful in terms of how we can work with faculty to improve their courses and make them universally designed. So once again, Aaron, I really appreciate your time and especially your tolerance for technical difficulties. And thanks to all of you. I hope you have a good rest of the week.